Now we're going to go to our fifth speaker, Cara Dansky. She's a lawyer and coordinator of the Women's Human Rights Campaign Laws Group. She's from the USA, and she's a fantastic speaker and has been promoting women's sex-based rights on a lot of TV programs recently. So you might have seen her clips. So welcome, Cara. So Cara is going to explain the CSW, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the plan for the Women's Human Rights Campaign parallel event, which will be happening in March. And then she'll also tell us about the US situation.
So this is the page for, this is the generic page for the NGO CSW. And this is the page that you can go to and you can learn all about what the CSW is and how you can get involved and, you know, read some of their resources. This is essentially a group of civic organizations that works with the UN on women's rights and women's issues. And you can, if you want, join. You can become a member by clicking on the membership button, and they'll charge you $50 to do that. But you don't have to in order to get involved in the event that we are doing that Joe just described. So if you go to this page, ngocsw.org, you'll find where it brings you to the NGO CSW forum. So this is what we want. This is what we're doing. This is an event that happens annually, typically in person in New York. But because of course, not everyone can go to New York, they're doing it virtually this year, and they're reporting a tremendous amount of interest, which is really, really wonderful. And this is a fantastic opportunity for us to present the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. There will be thousands, tens of thousands of people there, I'm sure. So when you go to the forum page, right, this is the page that talks about the forum. And what you can do, and I have to say, they don't make it terribly easy to navigate all of this. But if I understand, this is being run by a very small staff and a team of volunteers. So they're doing their best and they're asking for our patience, you know, as we all navigate all of this. So if you scroll down to where I've gotten, you can click on register to become an advocate. That's what you want to do. And they've made it possible to do this for free. So this is great. So if you click on register to become an advocate, it will take you to this Eventbrite page, and you can go ahead and you just, you know, you click on register, and it will send you an email and it will give you login information. I'm not going to do that now because I'm already registered, but that's what you do. It's fairly straightforward. I will say that a few of us have had some trouble with the process, but most of us have been able to register successfully. Okay, so once you have registered and you get your login information, they will send you a link to this page, which is run by something called Pathable, which is a virtual platform. So once you log in, here's what you can do. You can go to schedule and it will show you agenda and my agenda. And if you go to agenda and you go to Saturday, March 20th, which is the date of our event, you just click on the date, it will take you to Saturday. And then what you need to do is scroll down through all of these other events that are not our event. And when you get to 10 a.m. New York time, they do this all by New York time, you'll see our event. And this is Defending Women's Sex-Based Rights. You can click on it and you can click on Reserve Spot. And that will reserve you a spot in our event. And, you know, you can all sort of play around in this site. There are messages, you know, there are places for chatting. And so this is where you can come and hear our event. It's important to note, there's no Zoom link for us to send. You have to register for this particular platform in order to get access to the event. And you have to navigate your way into this event and reserve your spot. So there won't be a link to send in advance. You have to just go with the day and time, the 20th of March at 10 a.m. New York time, reserve your spot. There will be a button, I believe it will be right about here, where Joe will start the meeting. And at that point, it will feel like a regular Zoom webinar. They've set it all up somehow technologically so that this virtual platform will sort of link in some fashion to Zoom. So it will feel like a regular Zoom webinar. So this is for the event on defending women's sex-based rights, and I hope we will all come to that. The other really interesting thing, though, for all of us to know is that we can, once we've registered for the platform, sign up to attend any of their events. And all you have to do in order to do that, let's say you decide that you want to go to this pre-recorded content on NGO CSW 65. You want to attend that event. All you have to do is click the plus sign on the event. And then what it does is it adds it to this thing called My Agenda. It looks like I'm actually already logged in, so that's good. So what this is showing is that I don't have any meetings on my agenda because I haven't clicked on any. But if I did, it would look like this. Let's say I want to go to this pre-recorded event. I click on it, then I go to My Agenda, and there it shows me that I'm signed up to attend this event. And then what I can do, if I want to do it, I'm going to unschedule myself since I don't actually want to attend that event. What we can do then, because there's spaces to chat and message with other attendees, we can use that as an opportunity to promote the declaration as well. So we can link to the declaration in the message box. We can talk about the declaration. We can ask questions of other women from all over the world who are attending all of these various events. So that's just a brief overview. I hope you all get the opportunity to go ahead, register for the platform, reserve your spot in our scheduled event on defending women's sex-based rights, and go ahead and sign up for any other events that look interesting to you. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. It's going to be a really fantastic opportunity.
Now, Kari, you said that you can also tell us about the US situation. That would be really interesting to hear what's happening in the US.
Sure. So a couple things, I'll keep my screen share up for now. So as many people know, we recently had our newly elected president sign something called the Executive Order on Preventing and Combating Discrimination on the Basis of Gender Identity or Sexual Orientation. You can find it here. What this order did is basically two major things. It's important to note that this order in and of itself does not change existing law. So existing law has not been changed by this order. But what it does do is set out Section 1, this policy, and it's got several paragraphs talking about the importance, according to the Biden administration, of enshrining gender identity in law as a form of sex discrimination. And it does this deriving its reasoning on last summer's decision in Bostock versus Clayton County. And it does this in a very misleading way in a number of fashions, in part by suggesting that the reasoning of Bostock extends beyond the employment context. I don't want to go too into Bostock right now because we don't have time, but I will just say the Supreme Court last summer decided that it is illegal sex discrimination to discriminate against someone on the basis of their so-called transgender status. The Supreme Court, however, did not tell us what it might mean by transgender status. But in any event, we think that the Bostock decision was terrible for women and girls. But as bad as it was limited to the employment context. And this order takes it far beyond that for the purposes of administrative law. So that's the first thing it does, is it sets out this policy. And then it goes on. Section 2 is about enforcement. So there are 4 steps here. I won't go through all of them, but basically what this order does is it orders administrative agencies, this does not affect Congress, but administrative agencies to look at all of its policies and practices that address sex discrimination, and within 100 days to formulate a plan to revise their policies on sex discrimination to define sex to mean gender identity. So what are we doing about this? Because we have 100 days from the date of the order, which was the date of his inauguration, we have 100 days. So WHRC USA is forming a working group. We plan to talk with the agency heads to explain exactly why enshrining gender identity in the law is detrimental to women and girls, and using this as an opportunity to really promote the declaration in the United States government. And we really want them to when they formulate their plans to take into consideration our needs and interests as women and girls. But beyond WHRC USA, women in the United States have had enough. After this order was issued, women got extremely fired up. Women have launched an event for March 8th, International Women's Day. It's called Women Picket DC. WHRC USA has endorsed this event. We are standing up. We have had it. Women have had it. So these are the organizations that have endorsed the event. And, you know, if there's you can donate if you can. First of all, if you can come to Washington, D.C., if you're comfortable with that, we're going to follow COVID protocols. We're going to be safe. We're going to be peaceful. If you can come to Washington, D.C. and support this, that would be great. If you can't, please consider giving us a donation to cover the expenses. And of course, this event is promoting the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. So you're welcome to visit us at womenpicketdc.com. Women have had enough and we are fired up. Okay, beyond the Biden order, we're dealing with action in Congress. As many people will know, the House of Representatives passed the so-called Equality Act last summer. We anticipate that the so-called Equality Act will be reintroduced this year, probably as early as later this month. And so WHRC USA does not like that because the so-called Equality Act would essentially erase women and girls in the law. So we have come up with something called the Equality for All Act. And the working group that's working on the Biden order is also working on getting the Equality Act introduced before Congress. We are desperate to have a national conversation about what is actually going on here. So that's what's happening legislatively. Also, you need to know there is, well, I lost the link, but that's okay. There is a new working group just as of the past couple of days that announced that it is going to work to get introduced before Congress what it calls a so-called compromise on women's rights. And unfortunately, Martina Navratilova is very active in this effort. And essentially what this effort would do, it says that it compromises between women's rights and trans rights. And what it would do is both undermine women's sports, counter to Article 7 of the Declaration, and encourage the administration of puberty blockers in minors, counter to Article 9 of the Declaration. It does this by advocating for males to participate in women's sports so long as they have not undergone male puberty, which is essentially an encouragement of the administration of puberty blockers. So we're monitoring that situation. Beyond the federal government, we are dealing with an onslaught of state legislation. We have 17 states that are currently considering legislation to protect women's sports. This is great. It's absolutely fantastic. And we are wanting to be very active in that fight. Several more states have legislation in the works that has not yet been introduced. 2021 is going to be a very busy year. 11 states are considering legislation to regulate in some fashion the administration of puberty blockers on minors. WHRC USA has formed a working group to monitor all of these developments and submit written testimony wherever possible, explaining why allowing men to participate in women's sports is counter to both Article 1 and Article 7 of the Declaration, and explaining why the administration of puberty blockers to minors is counter to Article 9 of the Declaration. This will all be developing very quickly in the upcoming months. We've got our work cut out for us, and I will stop there. Thank you so much.